And as we settle here into a seat here, bring your hands and interlace your fingers just like this. And then place it down here right into your heart center. Let your shoulders kind of drop away from your ears. If you need to wiggle some things about, go ahead and do what you need to do. And if it works for you, or if it's an invitation to close your eyes, you can, or you can also keep your eyes open. You can gaze upon something that brings you joy, something maybe lets or helps you land where you are. Maybe it's even gazing out a window, especially if you've been on a screen a lot this morning. Sometimes gazing out beyond is a really nice thing to open up your gaze, your eyes, and settle here into your heart. As you breathe in, you might feel how your chest lifts up into your hands some. Feel that precious heartbeat underneath your hands there. That beating lets you know you are alive. You are here. I think that one of the things that I've learned the most, and it's funny because I always knew it. I always knew how grateful I was for this amazing community we have here at Perennial. But more now than ever, I am so grateful every time I get the opportunity to sit with you, to be with you, practice with you. Whether we are on screens or we are in person, my heart is with you. My heart is open to receive, remind you whenever you need that reminder that we're here. The gratitude for each breath as we land, as we share in this practice to remind us of this connection that we have, whether together or in each of our homes. This practice of keeping an open heart. When things are difficult, when things are hard, we want to retreat and surfaces want to harden. We show up and we practice being here together. Softening where it is we can soften, open where it is that we can open. Stay steady in the places that hold us. And in that steadiness, we remember right here this truth, this unshakable truth that you are all that you are, showing up in the best way that we can, moment to moment. Give yourself a breath all the way in and breathe all the way out. Do that again. Breathe all the way in and all the way out. So as you take your time to blink open your eyes, we're going to set up here on our hands and our knees here to get started. If having a little padding underneath your knees is helpful for you, go ahead and bring a blanket into the center of your mat and I'll join you on mine. So you can set your blocks just off to the side here for now. And as you set your knees on the blanket or maybe just on the surface of your mat, have your hands somewhere around that space where they might be underneath your shoulders. If having them out a little bit farther in front of you is helpful, if having them turned out just a smidge is helpful. Set yourself up wherever it feels like it's really stable. And start to just, and your toes could be curled under or you could be on the tops of your feet. I'm going to curl mine under today, but you can push through your hands and rock your hips back. And then breathe in and rock forward into your hands here and just shift the weight forward to what works in your hands and in your wrists. And then just keep that moving, just really nice and simple here. Just rocking back and rocking forward. Allowing the core here, your center, to feel active still, so you really feel supported. So something to watch out for as you're adding this movement is this dipping here where you feel like there would be an increased arch in your low back or your belly drawing down towards the floor. So feel a little bit of centering in there, gathering into your middle here some as you take these shapes. You'll really feel that when you rock forward. Yeah. And maybe each time your hips start to go back a little bit further, and your hips could start to go back even towards your heels, and take a little bit of action here where you feel this length and this extension here through the length of your arm. So the next time your hips go back towards your heels, keep your left hand on the ground and lift your right arm up, and just feel what that's like to extend out there in front of you. And then set your right hand down and rock forward as you breathe in. And then rock your hips back, put the weight into your right hand, and then just see what this is like to lift your left arm. And just lift it to the degree that works in your shoulder. And then set your left hand down, breathe in and rock forward. And you can go as forward as it works for your wrists. Yeah, energize through your core there. Hips go back. Let's do that again. Press into your left hand and really feel your palm pressing, and then lift your right arm up. Put your right hand down, breathe in, rock forward. And then your hips are going to go back. Press into your right hand and actively really press down through your right hand and lift your left arm up. Just wherever it works on your shoulder. You might even play with what it's like to open up here and turn your palm with your thumb up if that feels more open in your shoulder. And then set your left hand down, breathe in, rock forward. And when you exhale, your hips are going to go back for a child's pose. So as you come back for a child's pose, if it's helpful to bring a block underneath that space between your seat and the ground, if you want to adjust where your blanket is instead of it being underneath your knees, if you want to place that between your seat and your heels, it's another way to keep you lifted up out of it. Let your forehead come down to the ground here. And maybe take a little roll of your forehead back and forth on the ground. Give yourself a breath all the way in, all the way out. Now you're going to keep your left hand on the ground, and you're going to lift your right arm up. So as you lift your right arm up, and sometimes it just might be an intention of lifting the right arm up. It might be just a smidgen. It might be like a centimeter. Yeah, and you're lifting it straight out in front of you. And then set your right hand down, press into your right hand, and then lift your left hand up off of the floor. And feel what that's like to energize around the shoulder there. And then set your left hand down. And then do that again. Press into your left hand and then lift your right arm up. Sometimes it doesn't go anywhere. Sometimes you just imagine it. And then set your right hand down and then press into your right hand and lift your left arm up. Stay for another breath. And then put your left hand down. Take your hands back towards your feet. Let your shoulders round here and just curl into a little ball there for a moment. You might again rock a little back and forth on your forehead. You might even shift your hips a little back and forth too. Just take a whole body rocking side to side. All the way in with your breath and all the way out. And then come up to your knees. And you might give your knees a little break and come off of them if you would like, okay? You're going to find your blocks and just take a peek at me. So as you find your blocks, you're going to set them out in front of you and they're going to go underneath your hands. And so what we're doing here is that we're lifting our hands and we're lifting our arms, our shoulders, and we're putting them into a passive range of motion here. And that may be where you stay. And it could be that when I say, lift your arm from there, it might not go anywhere. And okay. just that intention and that thought of what it would be like to lift your arm up. Why that's different from where we just were is because we've increased the range of the shoulder there. Now we're playing with a little bit more of an end range strength, okay? So I'll show you here first, so you just get an idea of what it looks like. So as you come into this space here with your knees here, you're in close little flexion into this ball, and your hands go up the block, just like this. So that when you come down, and your forehead might not come down to the ground, and that's okay. So maybe your forehead connects, maybe it doesn't. So it could stay lifted. My hair might be hiding that some. I can pull that back. And what you're going to do is you're going to breathe in, press through your left hand, and you're going to feel the energy around your shoulder there. And then it doesn't have to go very far. I think maybe I've got an inch there. Now what will happen is a couple different things. Sometimes this like rotating open is what the body will want to do. So just stay curious and notice what happens here in your core when you go to lift your right arm up. The other thing that can happen too is that you want to lift up out of the hips to lift your shoulder. I just over-exaggerated it there. But sometimes when we come up like this, we'll also want to lift up out of the hips. So try to keep the package here that's in your hips and in your rib cage as much as you can. If there's some movement, of course it's going to happen. Don't sweat it. But pay a little bit of, or put a little bit of energy there to minimize any of that movement here and put all of the work into this action. And it's just like this. So if you're sitting upright, this is the intention right here. Okay. All right. So as you come on down, again, remember, your forehead might stay floating. It doesn't have to come all the way down to the ground, or your forehead can come down to the ground. That's just going to depend on the range of motion in your upper spine and the range of motion in your shoulders. So as you come on down into that shape and your hands are pressing, give both hands a press down into the blocks at first, okay? And you're going to put more action into your left and feel that drawing into your belly here. Feel a little bit, almost like what would feel like a cat shape almost in your spine. And then you're going to lift your right hand. And again, it might be a centimeter, it might be a millimeter. It might visual intention of what it's like to lift your right arm. And then put your right hand back down. Oh my goodness, right? Press your right hand. Press with your right arm. And then lift your left. So as you press down into your right hand, you might feel you have to anchor a little bit more into your left hip as a little hint. And then do that again. Press down with your left hand, lift your right arm. Now again, when you lift your right arm, you might find that you have to reach here into that flexion of your hips. And then set your right hand down, press with your right hand, press with your right hand, lift your left hand. It might just hover just a hair. Draw a little bit more into your left hip, a little opposite action there. And then place your left hand down, forehead comes down, take your hands back by your heels and give yourself a little bit of a break. A little bit goes a long way when we're working with end range strength, okay? And the idea is that when we're thinking about mobility and we're moving from places of mobility, we're really stable. We're wanting to create stability along with our mobility, so that when we start to take our joints through their range of motion, right, through these areas in which the joints can move, we want to imagine that you could be just as strong at this end range as you are in the middle range. Okay? Which for many people, we're going to be stronger and more middle ranges than we are and at the end. Okay? So come on up here off of your belly, come back onto your hands and your knees, and you can set your blocks off to this side. It might be helpful. We're going to give some movement here to our hips and kind of free up some of those spaces here, okay? So keep the weight here in your left knee. And you're going to take your right foot here off to the side. I'm going to turn to the side if that's more, or this direction if you can see me here. So as your right foot goes out, you're going to turn your right toes out so that you're opening your hip into your right hip. Okay. So as you come down into this space, you might use your blocks. You might lift up out of your hip there because we've been in them quite a bit. Okay. And so as you, and again, your hands could be down, whatever works better for you. Your blocks can even be up on a high setting here. And you're gonna lean into your right foot. So you're leaning into your right heel, and your right knee is gonna go beyond your right foot there. And when you do so, you're gonna see how and feel that there's a little bit of inside action to the inside of your left knee there, hence the blanket. And then when you come back, give a little bit of length through your right leg. Because we're stacked the way that we are, it doesn't have to go straight, but just feel what it's like to lengthen behind the right knee here some. And then come out into this open space. So as you lean in, right, I'm just lifting up out of it here to give a little more visual of what's going. You're plugging in at your right hip. Watch for the right knee so it doesn't collapse in. Yeah. And then lengthen that. That's it. And then rebend. And then give it a little length. Do that one more time. Breathe all the way in. Now, with your hand still on your right block, come into this space here a little bit more into the middle. Take your left arm, so your right arm is close towards your right leg, and you can always adjust where your right arm is. Turn your belly here and open up across your belly, and you're just spinning. So it's like you're spinning the left side of your rib cage back. And you can keep your left hand at your hip. It could be at your rib cage. If you'd like, you could reach it alongside your left ear. Just keep a little bit of that space open in your shoulder, right? Yeah, you can free your neck there, give your chin a little shake, but keep plugging into your right hip. That's it. One more breath here. And you're going to bring your left arm, pass it down in front of your face. So reach your left hand away from you, and so you can get a little bit of side stretch there, which we've already been opening up here, right? So now keep your hands here on your blocks and recenter them. As you lengthen your right leg, now you're going to turn your heel out. And you might adjust where your foot is here in space so that your right toes are close to being in the same line with your left knee. Again, it doesn't have to be an exact science, just whatever feels really stable there. So your hands could stay up here on blocks, on any of the heights, or no blocks. With your hands down here on the ground, now imagine a cat-cow, even though your legs are in this asymmetrical shape. So you're going to tip up from the back of your sacrum, so lifting up your tailbone and drawing your breastbone forward. And just notice what that does there in your hip too. And then when you exhale, press down into your arms, chin in towards your chest, and round your upper back as you take your tailbone and you're drawing it some underneath you. So there's some length there in the backside of your pelvis. And then inhale, take it the other direction. So again, all of that is absolutely possible here on the blocks, right? It's essentially like making your arms longer in this case. Lean in, tipping forward. And then exhaling into yourself. Do that one more time, breathing in. And then breathing out. Now, come into the middle. You're going to put the weight here more into your left hand, but you're going to scoot your left hand out here in front of you. Okay? So you might take a block with you. And as you reach that forward, you have a second block. It might come in handy for your head. Your hand could come off of that block entirely, but you take your right hand and you're going to thread it through. So your right hand is reaching away from your right long leg. And as you come forward, you might inchworm your left hand out there a little bit further. You can also take your head down onto the block so that the side of your skull here could rest on the block. If it finds the ground, it might find the ground. It's a lot of extra extension if your left hand is up on a block, so that would be your arm that is long. So feel free to take that away because that's a lot. There's a lot of action going on there. But keep pulling your hips up and back behind you. Press here through the outside of your right shoulder and press down through your left hand. Yeah, that's it. Give yourself a breath all the way in here. All the way out. Keep pressing into the pinky toe side of your right foot. And then you're going to bring your left hand back in front of your face to press through your left arm. And now you get to spin your belly to the right. Yeah, so you get to just open it all up. Again, you can free your head and your neck. And then bring your right hand down. If you're on blocks, you could walk your blocks back with you. You can just walk your hands up. You're going to bend your right knee and pull your right knee back. So now it's underneath your hip, and then we'll do the other side. So with your left leg out to the side here, your toes are turning out, and you're working on this attention. of keeping your left femur bone, so your thigh bone, plugged in here. So as you deepen into the flexion here of your hip, even though your hip is out to the side, so we're going to open up different angles of the hip here. Reach down into your left heel. And then give it a little bit of length. And your hips might swing a little bit to the right. That's okay. Just unbend it. It can just feel really nice to unbend after all the knee flexion we've already done today. So as you lean into the left leg, your left knee is going to pass beyond your ankle, and you're going to be more on the inside of your right leg. And then unbend. Again, blocks where you need them at any height. Reaching in, leaning in. And then lengthening to the places that you go. One more time to bend in, reach in, and then lengthen. The next time you take a bend into your left leg, you're going to take your left hand a little bit more to the inside of your left foot, or just a little bit to your left shoulder here, so that when you press down through your left arm, spin your belly to the right, and there your hands can stay at your rib cage or even at your hip. Or you could reach your arm, it could even be up towards the ceiling if you'd like, or reach alongside your ears, since we were working on the shoulder action there today. And feel like your right shoulder blade and the right side of your rib cage can reach away from your right hip. Like you're taking this extra length in this space right here. Yeah, that's it. One more moment. And then you're going to reach your right fingertips forward and then pass them down in front of your face. Find the other block, adjust your left arm. And when you turn your left heel out, so you're going to pivot on the ball mound of your left foot, and you're going to kick your left foot here out to the side. And just notice what that's like for you, okay? So you're going to energize a little bit more into the pinky toe side of your foot. Now that cat-cow shape, right? So you might notice as you mobilize your spine, notice the energy and notice the intention that happens with your left leg. So pressing, reaching into the back body here, and taking it the other way. Taking your sweet time, you might even pause and linger in some spaces as you need to. Feel that extra hamstring awakening there when you go into the cow pose, or that lifting forward of your breastbone. Yeah, so you really plug in there. That's gonna be nice. The inside of that inside portion of your hamstring. One more time here to exhale. As you come into the space here in the middle, again, adding or taking away the blocks where it works for you. But if the ground really seems far away, having your head make contact with the block here. And again, you can reach your right arm out, so you're giving it a little bit of space. And your left hand is you're going to turn your palm up and thread your right arm, a little softness to your right elbow as you lower yourself down. And then you can reach your right arm here farther out in front of you. And again, it might be on the block. It might be on the floor. Your right hand could be, your fingers could be tented. You can press down to the outside portion of your left shoulder. Breathing all the way into this rotation. Anybody else's left leg quivering, or is that just mine? Stay here, press down to the pinky toe side of your left foot. And then you're going to start by sliding your right hand back. So now it's in line more with your face. Press into your right hand and free your left arm up. So now you get to spin your belly to the left. And when you exhale, bring your left hand down. Slide your left leg back in line here with your left knee. And then something I did not warn you guys about or give you a heads up about is we're going to go to a wall. Now, if you don't have a wall or wall space to work with, you can also do this without a wall. I realize that the setup here, I'm going to be facing back behind you. So I'm going to show you what it's going to look like without a wall first. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a block here between our knees. Let me turn this way. And then the other block. So here I'm in the most narrow setting. And on this block, it's going to go a little bit wider. So for most of us, that's going to line up. So for me, I'm going to turn this way for you, and I'm going to find my way to a block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze my feet into this block here between my feet, while I'm also squeezing my knees into the block in the center, okay? So when we come to the wall here in a moment, if you have a wall space, you keep squeezing in the center of the block, and even here, you feel like there's a lot of glute work is what I want you to tune into. How the wall is going to support us here is then we're going to take our hands up at the wall like this, okay? So then the full surface of us, so imagine what this is going to look like once we come back down to the ground, hint, hint, hint. And we're going to use the wall in a little bit more vertical space, so it's a little bit just a different experience. So if I bring myself back, I'm just going to use this wall back here. I'm going to set my knees, and you could take your blanket with you if that's helpful to keep some padding underneath your knees. So a block's between your knees and a block between your feet. And as you set up at the wall, start up really close. And then you're going to take your palms at the wall, and your forehead could come to the wall too. And you press into your palms, keep squeezing the block, and you're going to feel how your glutes activate there, okay? And you're going to press the palms of your hands into the wall, okay? So if you need to step away from the camera, totally feel free to do that. Find any space that works. Doors work. Closed doors will also work as long as the person people you live with know not to come in the room, okay? So as you give that attention, giving that life here to the legs, now you get to keep your hips a little square. Press your palms. You're going to feel how your rib cage here draws into your center. And you can rest your forehead there. Breathe all the way in. Notice where your body comes alive. One more breath here. And then you're going to lower your hands. Bring your hands down, and your fingers are going to be facing towards the floor and tent onto your fingertips there. You're going to press into your fingertips, and now you're going to find your belly at the wall. So you're going to press into the wall like you're pressing your hips into the wall, and press your fingertips in the wall, and feel how your breastbone can lift up towards your chest. So just to get this angle from here, if this is a wall, I'm pressing my finger pads and lifting up through my chest. Yeah, that's it. This could also be done in standing too, by the way. And then soften. You might come down here and have a seat on that block that's between your feet if that works in your knees. Or if you need to stand up, get some energy to your legs, you absolutely can. And it makes me wonder, I know we have like this pretty setup here, but if I move without knocking a bunch of stuff off, let me see if I can show you at the wall over here. Can you see me over here? Yeah? Cool. Maybe that will be a little better angle instead of just looking at my back. Oh, I am out of high tree. I'm gonna get really cozy underneath the tree. We'll make it work. I won't be here long. So we're gonna come back at that again. Now, option one is to stay just like we were, right? Stay with the line, staying a little bit more vertical here, and working with the palms pressing and noticing what's happening there around your shoulder blades, around the shoulder socket, or you start to scoot back, okay? So if you start to give your legs here a little bit of space and you press through your palms, so in this space here where we were lifting up, if you press your palms, press, gather into your rib cage and then let your forehead come towards the wall. And you could stay there, or, right, you can keep shimmying back. The more you shimmy back, the more you have to press into your palms. The more action here in this space that's required of the shoulder. So that's where you can grade how much is required of the movement of your shoulder by how close your body is to the wall. Does that make sense? Okay. Now there's other versions of this. It's basically like a vertical puppy dog pose, right? Here, pressing, letting the forehead come. Now, there's other versions of the shape where we lower more of our breastbone to the wall. If that is a practice in your life, you can do that too. But what I like about today's practice with keeping the forehead and the palms in the gathering of the rib cage, you can integrate this shape here of the arm lifting up overhead while still keeping the integrity of what's going on in the core. The more stability you have in your core as you come into shapes that require a little bit of this thoracic extension, or what oftentimes we know as back bending in yoga, the more accessible that starts to feel. So this is a great way to kind of feel into some of the back bending, play a little bit on what we did last week in that back bending class. So you set it up in the way that works for you. And know too that if you need to just like come off of your knees and you want to do this in standing, you can absolutely do that. So as you set this up, again, back at the wall, palms pressing, forehead reaching, gathering into the rib cage. And if that feels really accessible and you're easily, the breath is still moving, because sometimes when the arms lift up overhead, the breath pattern changes. So you're staying curious about that. You're staying aware of what's going on there. And then you might walk your knees back. So as you walk your knees back, you're still thinking about keeping your hips and your knees lined up, essentially, the best you can as you reach your forehead. Then again, you're going to feel how the rib cage has to pull in a little bit more. And if there again, shimmy your way back. And then open up the space around the shoulder. So we're adding this combination work of both passive and active range of the shoulders in this motion where they are above your head. Yeah, and shoulder flexion. And you'll know when the right spot is to pause and to stop. Yeah, there's, Notice the area around your shoulder blades. It's almost like you can think of like a downward facing dog. And if you feel like you could wrap the edge of your shoulder blade towards the front of your chest some. Just notice what that's like. Another moment here to explore, to play. That's it. And then start to come away from the wall, wherever it is that you're at. Have a seat maybe down on your block, or give yourself a break in another way. So if that means coming down onto the floor, if that means standing up, really whatever it is you need to do. And then I'm going to shift my own producer here. I'm going to shift my camera back. A little more squared there. Yeah, so take what you need. And then I'm going to find my way back to my mat. If you stepped away from yours, come on back. Bring your blanket here, again, with you underneath your knees, and set your blocks there off to the side. Okay. So we're going to come back into a little bit of movement here to move through our hips, a little asymmetry, and then we're going to find our way into that puppy shape, or what we call Anahatasana, heart-melting pose. So we're going to start here with the left knee down and right foot forward. So you could do what I just did here, where I did a little balance work, pressing into my left leg to reach my right hand forward, or your hands can be on blocks and you thread your right foot through. Whatever works better for you, okay? So your blocks here can be on any height. It can be on the tall height, it can be on a shorter height. You could also do no blocks whatsoever. As you sneak your right foot through, we're going to bend more into our right leg and take some length here into the back leg. So Anjaneyasana, so that when you bend into your front leg or in this low lunge, again, your right knee is going to go beyond your ankle. Now, we're going to lengthen the front leg and just unbend, just ease our way into it. Now, when you do this, press your hands into the blocks and notice that when you lengthen your right leg, that your right hip draws back. So now my right hip and my left knee are about in the same area code. We'll say it that way, okay? And then when you bend into your right leg, when you press down to your space where it feels okay to press in the back foot, if you need to have your back toes curled on, you can do that too. But now you can use your blocks to press and lift your chest. But now reach down through your right heel and feel how that again plugs you into your right hip, because now we're more straight out in front of us. Where moments ago we were out to the side. And then when you exhale, lengthen your front leg. And when you do so, you're plugging your right hip back and still keeping your spine long in this case. And then one more time to bend into your front leg. So you press into your back shin, draw down into your right heel. You're gonna feel how that is gonna pull a lot of energy into your right hip. Now again, you can press into your blocks, lift your heart, shoulders away from your ears. Feel the extension all the way from your back toes, across your left hip, and all the way up into that space around your heart. When you unbend your right leg and lengthen it, one more time. Yeah. Plug the right hip back. And then you're just going to soften your right knee. Now again, two options. You can just thread your right leg back through by keeping your hands on your block. If you like that little balance trick, you can press down, do away with your blocks, and balance your way back. Yeah. If you're looking for a little bit of play, it's a fun one to play. So you're going to find your left foot forward, again, maybe threading it through with your hands on the block, or maybe you want to do that little balance work there. So as your hands come down here in front of your left hip, again on any height, I like the tallest height here, press down into your back foot, back shin, and bend into your left leg. Now again, you're thinking about your left heel. And notice when you reach down through your left heel, what happens in your pelvis. Okay. Notice if you're dumping your shoulders and shoulders up towards your ears. Keep pressing into the blocks. Yeah. And then when you exhale, lengthen your left leg, draw your hips back. You can even feel a little pull forward of your breastbone here, almost like you're pulling back on your block some. Yeah. And then bend into your left leg. And as you press down to your back shin, feels a little bit of lift. There's this little string in the center of your breastbone lifting you up. And then exhale, lengthen your left leg. Again, if you reach down into the blocks, if you add like an energetic pull back towards your hips, you'll feel a little more extension through around your breastbone there. Okay. One more time to bend into your front leg. Press down through your back shin. Again, your toes could be curled under there too if that feels better on your knee. Press down through your left heel, and again, lift up through your chest. Exhale, lengthen your front leg. So that when you just gently bend into the front leg, again, you could thread your back leg through with your hands still on your block, or you can come up with this a bit and balance your way back to your left knee being underneath your hips. I know, it's kind of fun, isn't it? So the blanket can stay just as it is. And there'll be some options here to use your blocks or not, right? So when we think about this shape, let me just take away that one for a hot second. And it can be whether you need to adjust where that block is going to be. Now again, you might not use a block at all. But I'm going to aim for my forehead to be supported by the block, okay? So when you come down here, if we were thinking about on our hands and our knees where we were early in practice, but now take your hands out in front of you so that when we lower ourselves down, I'm going to scoot myself back here a little bit. So when we lower ourselves down, we're lowering our chest, we're lowering our forehead. But remember that gathering in at your rib cage that we had at the wall? Remember I said about keeping the hips stacked? You see how my knees and my hips are going to stay relatively in the same line. So there's this lifting of hips, just like we would think about like a downward facing dog. But as you melt your heart to your forehead, down to the ground. Press into your palms. Your elbows will lift there if you're using a block under your forehead. You could also stack your 2 blocks if the floor feels really far away. And you could be this shape like so. It could be no blocks. But remember that amount of pressing of your palms. Same thing here. Same thing. Press your hands, strong in your hands, reaching downward, and soften the space around your heart. Stay here for another moment. Now to come up out of this, you can press into your hands, lift your forehead. You can walk your hands back, just shimmy them back. You could also keep your forehead on the ground and walk one hand back, press, and then the other hand walk back. Or another way to get out of it, okay? Swing your feet off to the side and bring your blocks with you. So as you swing your feet down to the side, we're gonna lay all the way down here on the floor. So come on down to your back. You have the blanket off to the side, or the blanket could be underneath you for a little bit of padding. As you settle yourself here down, take a block and bring it between your knees here. So as you bring that block here between your knees, now take your shoulder blades and really just feel like they're planted strong underneath you. So option 1 here is to take your palms and press them down into the mat. And you'll already feel what starts to happen there again on the backside of your shoulders. Now we're just taking the opposite shape in the shoulders. You could also, you could take your hands and make a grip around the edge of the mat and pull, like you're pulling the mat away from the center, like you were trying to rip your mat in two, essentially. And that'll bring a lot of life to your back body. So as you breathe in, you're going to press down. So you're pressing to the back of your arms, pressing the back of your shoulders. You might shimmy there and find your shoulder blades underneath you a little bit more. But squeeze into the block and feel the action here in your back body. Just feeling it in a different orientation here. Breathe all the way in, all the way out. Do that again. Breathe all the way in. Feel a little bit of gathering, a little bit of action here in your rib cage, drawing towards your center. And then when you exhale, lower yourself all the way down to the ground. You can give your knees a little knock side to side. You could take the block away from between your knees, or you could keep it there. We're going to do it like that just one more time, and then we're going to stack both of our blocks. We're going to take a restorative bridge. So option 1, do just like you did before. Option 2 is take the block away and feel what that's like to still have that energy of gathering into your center as you press away the ground. Strength here in your backside as it extends, it lifts up through your hips and press down through the backs of your arms just to counterbalance some of that, all that overhead work with our shoulders today. Breathing all the way in. All the way out, and then lower yourself here down towards the ground. And you could, if your body wants another active bridge, you could. Or you could take one block and set it underneath your pelvis. Now, I have the block so that as much of the surface on my backside of my pelvis that can be there is there. Now, you could do one and allow yourself to be there like so. Or if you lift here, lift your heels, and just give you a little bit more space, you could stack both blocks. Now, if that puts too much pressure into your shoulders and into your neck, come down onto one block. If being lifted with a little bit more supported extension in your hips feels lovely, then you could stack 2 blocks. It's just options there to feel where you feel that expansion and opening. Now take your hands and your arms here out to the side with your palms up. Feel here the opening here across your chest. Breathing all the way in and all the way out, feeling how the back space here, imagine that back space here between your shoulder blades. And feel like now that's the area of the back side of your heart space reaching down towards the ground. Because when we think about the area of the energetic area of the heart space here around the body, it's not just in the front. It's a 360-degree deal, front and back, expanding in all directions. So as we counter that melting of our heart, now we can express the melting of the backside, but an expansion and opening of the front side of our body. Now you could stay like so, or you could lift one leg at a time and send your feet up to the ceiling. Now, if you're sending your feet up towards the ceiling and you have 2 blocks and that feels like too much, then take a block away and come back into it. So allow yourself here to feel into the spaces. Right now, all of that energy in our legs, in our hips. If there's a little quiver in your legs like there are in mine, let it be okay. Let that energy here in the lower part of your body now melt towards the direction of your center. Again, if you can allow your palms to turn up here. Staying here for a few more breaths. Now, if you were still at your wall, right, you could totally also do this at a wall. I should have said that earlier, but you can come back to it anytime. Legs up the wall is one of the most favorite restorative shapes that I practice on a pretty regular basis. So unwind and soften the areas of the body that can sometimes really get stuck into patterns of holding on to get by. It happens in everyday life. Now, bend one leg at a time, bring your feet down. And again, you have the option to take away a block if you have 2 blocks. You could also take away both of your blocks. And now extend your feet towards the front of your mat. So now you're taking, if the block is still underneath you, if you need to adjust, sometimes I need to pick up my pelvis and scoot down a little bit. To allow now the space here across and a little breath of air across the front of your hips, because we did a lot of work around the glutes and the hips and the pelvis today, and the chest and the shoulders. The package deal. Your hands might come out of your hips, or again, your palms can be up and supported, or allowing your palms to be up while your shoulders here underneath you supporting you. Imagine that space here around the softness of your belly. Can you let that be easy? Can you bring some ease there? Sometimes hands on the belly can be nice as a reminder to do that. And the neck to be soft, the neck to be easy. Sometimes a little shake of the chin, a little bit is nice. And then bend here into your feet or into your knees to bring your feet underneath you. Press down, and so you can take your hips there off of the block. And now pull your knees here into your belly and give yourself a really nice, easy squeeze. Notice the space in the front of your hip. Imagine how that feels different than that very first child's pose where we started today. Or not started, but it was early on. Now, if you would like, you could take a block between your knees, or you can have a block off to the side. We're going to take a little supine twist here, a little twist here with letting the knees draw to the right. So if you want, you can let your outside of your legs or even your bottom side of your, like around your calf muscle, that can rest on the block just for an easy support. Or no block, the block could be between your knees, the block could be nowhere to be found. But keep your left shoulder blade on the ground. You could also take your blanket between your knees if you want a block supporting the outside of the bottom leg. And a blanket between the knees can be nice. Stay here for a few more breaths, just another breath or two. So that when you're ready, you can start to pick your left leg up off of your right, come back into the middle here under your back. Again, if there's any props that you want to set up to support the shape of your legs, which is essentially supporting your pelvis as you twist. And when we support the pelvis, sometimes, and that allows us to get a little more space, a little more opening around your rib cage. Let your gaze fall where it's going to fall. Maybe it's towards your right hand, maybe it's up towards the ceiling. Wherever it is that your gaze goes, let your neck be easy. Stay for just another breath or two. And when you're good and ready, you pick your right leg up off of your left, come back into the middle. If you want to give yourself a little squeeze here, or maybe a happy baby, reaching for the soles of your feet or even behind your legs. A little tick-tock here in the back of your spine. Any other shape that you need or want. And then we'll set up for rest. So as you take your time, linger where you need to linger. Add what you need to add. You could take your blanket, bring it underneath your shoulders so there's some support there under your shoulders or the back of your head. Like you're creating a little pillow. If that's what you do, then you can add a little roll. It supports just the base or the curvature of your neck, and you can find rest. You could also take your blanket and bring that underneath your legs. You could also take your blocks and bring them underneath your thighs. And that can also be something that supports just a bend in the knees and an opening across your pelvis. Or lie all the way down, no props. Maybe a blanket to cover you up and stay warm. If there's another shape that your body wants to find, instead of lying down on the ground, maybe it's sitting, maybe eyes open, maybe eyes closed. Whatever it is that you need. But allow this time to be yours, to settle in, to be just as you are. Let those moments of gratitude settle not only around the space around your heart, but let it fill up your entire being. Retaining what it is that you need that serves you, but also maybe imagining that with gratitude as it fills your being, that it can also exude from you as a part of your essence, as a part of what you share and give to the world. Because you see this practice of gratitude as a practice of giving and receiving. As we open our hearts, we don't only open them for ourselves, but for others. An act of service and an act of sharing, expressing with the world that is you, the beautiful gift that you are, that the world needs to be seen, needs to be heard. And that's how this practice is a cycle. Through recognition, through awareness, and through expression of love and gratitude. Deepen your exhale some. Maybe wiggle a bit, fingers and toes. And if you need to stay just as you are, then you stay just as you are. Be there, linger as long as you need. Or when you're ready, if you want to come on up to an upright seat, let those wiggles turn into maybe a stretch, maybe a roll to your side. Find your way on up. And we'll settle our hands here into our heart. Feel the warmth of your palms as they settle into your precious beating heart. And we'll close out our time together with one Om. Give yourself a breath all the way in. Om. Bowing with deep gratitude to you all. Namaste.